Shalom, everybody. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, and welcome to a whirlwind tour of biblical history. We're going to take a quick look at the history of the Israelite and Judean people as it's described in the Hebrew Bible. Let's see if I can remember how to advance my slides. There we go. All right, so where does the Hebrew Bible start? The Hebrew Bible starts at the very beginning, when the God of the Hebrew Bible makes the universe and everything in it by telling it to exist. He makes humans last of everything that he makes. Rather unusually, he makes them to be like him and has them help take care of the animals and plants that he has also created. The humans, Adam and Chava, and God have a good relationship. However, well, things don't last. The humans were allowed to do anything that they wanted except for one thing. God told them not to eat the fruit of one specific tree. In this vast, beautiful garden with thousands of trees in it, this is the one tree they can't eat the fruit from. What do? Of course, they eat the fruit. And by doing so, break the universe. Why does this break the universe? Well, if we remember what we just said, the God of the Hebrew Bible made the universe by telling it to exist. So his words created the universe and shaped the universe in the biblical perspective. And he told them with his words, again, don't eat from this one specific tree or bad stuff will happen. What happens? They eat the fruit, they break the universe, bad stuff is now going to happen. The animals become hostile. Before that, they had not been hostile, but now they are. Plants also start becoming hostile. We now have weeds, we have thistles, and humans often become hostile to other humans. This also ends up seriously messing up the human's relationship with God. As time goes on, humans multiply. Very quickly, they invent murder and other awful hobbies. Pretty much, Adam and Eve's first kids, they kill each other. So this is not good. God is not okay with this, so he gives humanity a warning. In 100 years, he is going to send a huge flood, so they should build a boat and make ready for this situation. However, almost nobody takes this seriously, so 100 years later, most people die when he does indeed send the flood that he said he was going to send. Only Noah and his family survive in the boat that Noah built based on God's instructions. Still in the book of Genesis, several generations go by, humans multiply again. Now God calls a man named Abraham and his wife Sarah to leave their home and go to Canaan on the southern Mediterranean coast. This is maybe around the 1800s BCE. They obey God. God promises them 4 things. He tells them specifically that he will make them a great nation. So he's going to give them a lot of kids, grandkids, great-grandkids, that kind of thing. He's going to bless them. He's going to bless those who bless them and curse those who curse them. So basically saying those who are their allies, he's going to treat well. Those who are their enemies are going to be also his enemies. And finally, he says that he will use them and their descendants to bless all the families of the earth. By the 1400s BC, the Israelites, Abraham's descendants, have multiplied into 12 tribes, specifically descended from the 12 sons of Jacob, Abraham's grandson. At this point, they're living in Egypt, where the king of Egypt has put them to work doing corvée labor. Basically, he has them building cities, building roads, other kinds of large projects. It's not terribly pleasant work. God then calls an Israelite named Moses to lead the Israelites out of Egypt and to build a holy tent, sometimes called a tabernacle, where God will be worshipped. After many adventures, Moses does so. Now, once this holy tent has been made and the Israelites have made it back almost into Canaan, the Israelites and God have a formal covenant ceremony. God and the Israelites make a formal agreement with one another. where each party basically says, we're going to stick together, we're going to be allies, we're going to be loyal to one another. And the Israelites agreed to a number of additional stipulations, things like we're not going to worship other gods, we're not going to make images of other gods, we're not going to kill each other, these sorts of things. As part of this whole covenant process, God also explains many laws to the prophet Moses. Eventually, the Israelites get back into Canaan, and they don't come terribly peacefully. Why is that? Well, God is not very pleased with the Canaanites who had been living in the land of Canaan, because they've been burning their children to the gods, which the God of the Hebrew Bible absolutely is not okay with, as well as doing a long list of other bad activities. So God tells the Israelites they need to either kill the Canaanites or drive them out. Or if the Canaanites actually come and ask for peace and surrender, sometimes that's an option as well, but only in limited circumstances. Then what happens? The 12 tribes of Israel settle around southern Canaan. After the death of Moses, after the death of Moses' successor, Joshua, the Israelites kind of lose track of this whole thing where God had brought them up out of Egypt through many adventures, how he had brought them into Canaan. They kind of lose track of all that, and they sort of stop caring about obeying the laws that he gave them. And during this period, it is written in the book of Judges that every man does what is right in his own eyes. And if you read the book of Judges, you will see that what was right in their own eyes was nasty. God keeps on telling them that they need to stop, they need to worship him and stop doing all the horrible things that they're doing, but for the most part, they don't listen. So he allows some of the curses from his covenant with Moses and the Israelites to become active, mostly raids from neighboring groups. So the Philistines, the Moabites, the Ammonites, the Amalekites, they're all going to come in and raid Israel. Now, sometimes during this period, the Israelites will realize what's going on and they'll say, let's go back to worshiping God, and then he will send someone called a judge to rescue them from these raids. But usually after a few decades, the judge dies, and the Israelites go back to doing what's right in their own eyes. After a while, the Israelites get tired of being raided by their neighbors and decide that they need a king who can unite them in war. The first king is a guy named Saul. He manages to beat back their enemies pretty effectively, but he does not obey God and eventually dies in battle. After many adventures, a successor rises up for him, a young man named David, who becomes king. He's a man after God's own heart, according to the biblical account, although he does do some shady stuff as well, which the biblical writers do not approve of. He and his son Solomon managed to unite the tribes of Israel, set up a capital in the city of Jerusalem, build a temple for the God of the Hebrew Bible, Yahweh, and start building infrastructure and administration for the kingdom of Israel. Well, seems like things are going well. All right, so we're in the 900s BCE, Israel is thriving. Well, things don't stay like that for long. David's grandson, named Rehoboam, makes some truly horrible policy decisions pretty much immediately when he becomes king, and about half of the country decides to secede and go do their own thing. So at that point, Rehoboam, David's grandson, is left in control of what becomes known as the Kingdom of Judah to the south around the city of Jerusalem, while a guy named Jeroboam becomes the king of Israel to the north. Now, here we have a slide very quickly summarizing what went on with Israel and Judah. So Israel is the one to the north. This kingdom lasted from about the mid-900s when we had this split to 722 BCE. During that period of about 200 years, we had 19 kings in 9 dynasties. So this is pretty bad, even for the ancient Middle East. This is very fast turnover of dynasties that we're getting here. We get a lot of generals who kill their kings and usurp the throne. We have a lot of messy stuff going on. According to the Hebrew Bible, all of the rulers of Israel were bad. They did quite a few nasty things, as well as building their own places to worship God and also worshiping many other gods, which are things that the God of the Hebrew Bible had said not to do. Eventually, in 722 BCE, they end up being conquered by the Neo-Assyrian Empire and taken off into exile. What about Judah? So Judah is the southern kingdom around the city of Jerusalem. Jerusalem is where David and Solomon built that temple to the God of the Hebrew Bible. Judah lasts from the mid-900s to about 586 BCE. During most of that time, they maintain the worship of the God of the Hebrew Bible in the temple in Jerusalem. Like the Israelites, they have 19 kings, but they're all from one dynasty, which, instead of being really unstable, is really stable for the ancient Middle East. Most of them succeed one another peacefully. According to the Hebrew Bible, some of these rulers were bad and some were good. Some promoted the worship of other gods, while some promoted the worship of the God of the Hebrew Bible. Here are some maps to kind of show you the kingdoms of Israel and Judah. If you look at the map on the left side, you can see the kingdom of Israel there in green and the kingdom of Judah to the south in orange. You can see that we're here between the Mediterranean Sea in the west, and the Jordan River is kind of running up the middle of the kingdom of Israel. You see that there? You can also see the Judean capital of Jerusalem, which is the underlined town right around the middle. And you can see Samaria, which is the capital of Israel for much of its history, also there in the green area. All right, so we have the situation where we have independent kingdoms of Israel and Judah. Israel always has bad kings. Judah has a mix of good and bad kings. Okay? Many prophets, those are basically intermediaries of the god that are given specific messages from the deity that they're supposed to deliver to an audience. So many prophets warn the people and the rulers of Israel and Judah that they will be exiled from their homes if they continue to disobey God. However, if they return to God, he will bring them back. In 722 BCE, Israel had not listened, and so according to the biblical history, Israel then is attacked by the Neo-Assyrians and its people are exiled. About 100 years later, Judah is attacked by Nebuchadnezzar II, the Neo-Babylonian king. They had also been warned by many, many prophets, like seriously, over a dozen different prophets in the Hebrew Bible are mentioned as telling the Judean kings and the Judeans that they need to change what they're doing, and it's not effective. So Judah ends up being attacked by the Babylonians, Jerusalem is destroyed, and its people are exiled to other parts of the Neo-Babylonian Empire. So what's going on at this point? So the people of Israel have mostly been scattered around what used to be the Neo-Assyrian Empire. The Neo-Babylonians had basically taken over that same area around 604, and now the Judeans are also scattered around within that area. What's going to happen? Well, in 539 BCE, Cyrus of Persia comes through and he conquers the Neo-Babylonian Empire. After he conquers it, he tells the various people groups that were exiled around the empire by the Babylonians that they can go home and rebuild their temples. One of the groups that takes him up on this are the Jews of Judah. So many of them head back to Judah over the next 100 years. They rebuild their temple, they rebuild the walls of the city, and in fact, they'll continue to be ruled by Persia, as is further described in the Hebrew Bible, until Alexander the Great will conquer the Persian Empire in the late 300s BCE. So, what can you see here? We can see a couple of things. One thing is that the Hebrew Bible is really focused more on the Israelites' relationship with their God than on events in general. There are quite a few important historical events, such as wars between Assyria and Babylon, or, the Persian takeover. Well, the Persian takeover actually does get mentioned, but a lot of things on the international stage that were going on in the ancient Middle East during biblical times that never really get mentioned. And that's because a lot of those large scale events were just not relevant to the relationship of the Israelites and Judeans with their God. So they just don't get mentioned. We can also look at this and kind of see that there's an overarching theme through a lot of this biblical material. So I just summarized for you historical-ish material from more than 20 books of the Hebrew Bible. So what could be the moral of the story here? What's this kind of overarching idea? We get this kind of overarching idea that the God of the Hebrew Bible has made this covenant with the Israelites, and the Israelites have agreed to this covenant. And in this covenant, this agreement, the Israelites have agreed to do specific things and not do specific things, and they have agreed to certain consequences if they do or don't do those things. Also, as part of that agreement, the God of the Hebrew Bible has promised to bless them and watch over them and help them to prosper as long as they keep the covenant. So we have this covenant that's been set up, but the Israelites and Judeans keep on breaking the covenant. So over and over again, the God of the Hebrew Bible tells them, this is not okay, you need to stop, we need to kind of return to a better situation. And sometimes they listen and sometimes they don't. And when they don't listen, bad stuff tends to happen. However, once they regret the situation and they want to return to worshiping the God of the Hebrew Bible, he rescues them again. So this is kind of the picture that you get through the biblical history.